You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips.
Perfect. In pitch.
Nice.
This is Spoiler Country. I'm Kenric, and John is holding a camera for us. We're here with Mike Grell, an industry icon.
Hi, guys.
We really appreciate you taking the time out with us today.
I'm not taking time out at all. I'm drawing while we talk.
Yeah, he's drawing as we go through this. It's been really nice. So let's just get right into it. You've been in the industry from what, 1972, I want to say?
73. It's,
73?
Yeah, 44 years.
And you started with Superboy and the Legion of Super Friends, correct?
Not quite. My first job was Aquaman.
Oh.
An Aquaman backup in Adventure 435.
Aquaman backup in Adventure 435.
Yep, as the Undersea City Sleeps, by Steve Skates, who was heavily into the letter S. And my first regular assignment, though, was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes.
Right.
Not Super Friends.
Oh, Superheroes. Sorry. I did Super Friends.
That's okay.
I'm a child of the 80s, so the Super Friends was a big part of my childhood.
I know. You are a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
I've got underwear older than you.
You probably do.
I'm probably wearing them today. Do these say poo in the back? I'm pretty sure there's poo back there someplace.
So, when did you come up with the concept for the Longbow Hunters?
That was actually pretty easy. I had already done Green Lantern and Green Arrow in the 70s when Denny O'Neil resurrected the character. I got a phone call from Mike Gold, and this was several years after I had left DC to go out and make my fortune.
Like First Comics and stuff?
Yeah, First Comics, Pacific Comics, creator-owned stuff. And Mike Gold had been my editor at First Comics, and then he switched over and was working at DC. I got a phone call from Mike saying, look, what would it take to get you to come back to work over here, bury the hatchet? He said, is there any character that you like well enough to bury the hatchet? And I said, actually, truthfully, I said, I always thought that I had done such a crappy job on Batman in the 70s that I'd love to give it another shot at it. But I had just had dinner with Frank Miller the week before, and Frank told me his whole idea for The Dark Knight. I said, when Frank's done with The Dark Knight, you can put a period at the end of the Batman sentence for the next 20 years.
Right.
So far, I'm off by 10 years and counting, right? And Mike Gold said, well, what about Green Arrow? And I said, Green Arrow's always been my favorite comic book character, still is.
Yeah, he's great.
And he said, well, think about this. Green Arrow as an urban hunter. And that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I was hooked and sold right then and there.
You know, I bought that book the day it came out in 1987. I was 13 years old. And that was my first book that I bought that was more of an adult themed.
Yeah, you were 13, so
it
explains a lot.
Yeah, and it was, reading it, I didn't know comic books could be like that. And it made a big impression. So then I went back and read The Dark Knight, and it was like, wow, there's a whole different genre of books here that I didn't even know existed in the realm of the characters that I already knew. You know? Yeah,
it was an era where everybody was experimenting and intentionally pushing the envelope to see how far we could go, and in many cases what we could get away with.
Well, I like the fact that you made your characters flawed and had real concerns, like wanting to have kids and the other one not wanting to have kids, and because of what they do for a living.
Right.
And
the relationship between Ollie and Dinah was always so super strong. They had probably the greatest sexual relationship in comic books.
Right.
Even though it was always more or less implied up until the point I took it over, and then it became, forget implied, let's go straight for overt.
Yeah.
And it paid off. The kinds of things that I wanted to do with a character, in order to make those changes that I wanted to do, it was necessary to show the depth of that relationship in the first place, so that when the moment comes in Longbow Hunters where Ollie finds Dinah strung up from a forklift in a warehouse, he has a choice. He could shoot the knife out of the bad guy's hand, because he's already done it in the story. But that's not what he does. What he does is he shoots the guy square through the heart, because the son of a bitch just deserved to die.
Right. He intentionally killed him because he was getting ready to.
Right, and it wasn't like I said. It wasn't because it was just self-defense or in defense of Dinah. It was because he made that choice and that decision to kill. Now, I wanted to do that specifically to bring about that change in the character, because when Denny O'Neil had written the character, there was a story where Ollie accidentally kills a guy and he goes off his nut, shaves his head, joins a monastery, withdraws from society, and swears he'll never ever take another human life. Well, how are you going to have an urban hunter running around with a bow and arrow who's not willing to shoot people, right?
Taking on the mob.
Right. So I needed to do that, but I also wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't be a throwaway. You know, so many stories that you read, revenge stories especially, you meet the hero, you meet the wife on page 2, on page 3, the wife is dead.
Right.
And from there on, he just tracks people down and slaughters them.
Right. That's very similar to the Punisher, right? Every time they go back to his backstory, you see the wife for a minute, and then it's the scene where they're dying.
Yeah, she had more lines in the flashbacks than she ever had in the real story.
Right.
That doesn't carry the weight. It doesn't carry the weight.
Right, you don't get invested in the character. When you get invested, then you want to know what's going on, and then when you do something like kill her off, then they're like, "Oh my God, I want this guy dead." Yeah, I had a personal problem writing the Sable story where I killed his family off. Yeah,
I mean, it was wrenching, because I had already lived with these people in my brain for a year and a half, and I had written and drawn several issues before I ever got around to, okay, this is where they get killed, and
but you've raised them, basically. You've created these backstories that made them what they are and the decisions they made. Right. And then you got to put them in this situation they can't get out of.
Right.
It's a tough one.
Right. And so with Green Arrow, what that enabled me to do was carry things a bit farther. To explore the nature and the effect of violence on people's lives.
Yeah.
His own violence affected him in ways that he never expected, and it's like I've done in Sable, where Sable gets shot in one issue. He's not all healed up and fine in the next issue.
Right.
He's still. He's not only got a scar from the bullet wound, but he's walking with a cane, right?
Right.
It's stuff like that really happens in real life, and in the case of Ollie and Dinah, what I did was instead of throwing it away and just passing it off almost as if it never happened, their relationship goes from one of warmth and intimacy and terrific sex to the point where she can't stand to be touched.
Right.
And he's having his own issues because he's made that choice to kill, and I compared it in the series to stepping off a cliff.
Yeah.
You can't unjump. Once you jump,
you're going.
Yeah.
You're going down.
Yeah. You can change your mind all you want, but sorry, you're going down.
So creating this reality, or trying to keep it more steeped in realism, is that why you changed it from Star City to Seattle?
Yeah, that was one reason. Getting out of Star City was my way of never having to deal with any of the superhero backstory when I featured.
That's one of my favorite parts about that series.
Yeah, when I featured Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, it was as Hal Jordan, not as Green Lantern.
Right.
There were no bug-eyed monsters from outer space, no superpowers. honestly, Ollie was the only guy who put on a funny suit and went out and fought crime.
Yeah.
And I wanted to move him into the real world so I could do real world based stories. And the fact is, I'm a small town kid from a little dinky town in northern Wisconsin.
Right.
I grew up 100 miles north of Green Bay. The only cities I ever lived in, New York, Chicago, and Seattle, where I was living at the time.
Yeah.
I had already done New York as a backdrop for Sable.
Okay.
Chicago is a great place for food and music.
Right.
But as a setting for a story, it's too far removed from just about everything.
Well, we're from Seattle, so it was really neat to see it portrayed that way.
Okay, well, then you very well understand the reason for the hood.
Yeah.
It rains a lot.
Yeah. 9 months out of the year.
Not 9 months. I lived out there for over 30 years, and I'm here to tell you, it doesn't rain all the time.
Well, we try to keep people away from moving there, so we always tell them 9 months.
I know. It's more like from September through
like March,
July.
Yeah. That's about 9 months.
Yeah. Come to think of it. This is funny. I spent the first 2 weeks in Seattle trying to buy an umbrella.
Yeah.
They don't sell umbrellas in Seattle.
Only tourists use umbrellas in Seattle.
Exactly. I had come from New York, and when it rains in New York, there's an umbrella stand on every street corner.
They're doing that more and more now.
Right. So you could buy a $2 umbrella that was good enough to get you to the next corner to buy another $2 umbrella, right? And so 2 weeks I'm going into every store, nobody sold umbrellas, and my buddy said, look, if you really want an umbrella, what you have to do is you go to the biggest department store, which is the Bon at the time.
Right.
And you go to Lost and Found and you say, excuse me, I lost my umbrella. They say, what did it look like? You say black. They'll bring out a box with 2 or 3 umbrellas in it. There's bound to be a black one in there.
That's a great idea.
You pick the one that you like and you go home. And I swear to God, that's how I got my umbrella. And within 2 months, I had lost it, mislaid it, and never found it again.
Went back.
Who needs it, right? It finally dawned on me that it's not that Seattleites don't mind the rain. It's that they're totally unaware of it.
Yeah.
Completely oblivious. That played to my benefit here a couple of years ago. I did Dragon Con. Mm-hmm. And the night we drove in, we're checking into the hotel. Parking was off-site about 3 blocks away, and there was a hurricane off the coast coming in, and it was bands of rain.
Yeah.
So it would be 10 minutes of downpour, 5 minutes of break, 10 minutes of downpour, and on like that. And I was walking back from the parking lot, and I was almost, I'd say, half a block from the hotel, when it dawned on me that it had been raining for the last 2 blocks.
You didn't even notice. It's the Seattle coming out in you.
Yep. And when you see people in the Midwest dashing for cover when it starts to sprinkle, you go, the power I wield. I don't have to run from the rain. It runs right off.
So I got just one more question for you, and then I'll let you get going on your stuff. What is your feelings on variants? There's always a lot of people talk about the amount of variants that come out compared to what they did in the 80s, if hardly any variants ever came out in the 80s. And now it feels like in 2014, they did The Death of Wolverine. There was 23 different variants for each cover.
Okay. That was excessive.
Yeah.
And anytime you're trying to create a false collectible,
right,
by doing 23 different covers, you have to have them all. That comes back to bite you in the butt.
Yeah,
it just really does. Because the reality of it is that anything that exists in an edition of 100,000 or more, that's not a collectible.
Right.
if there's 15 or 20 of them, then it's highly collectible, even to 1,000. Now, I shouldn't complain about variants because right at the moment I'm doing variant covers for Green Arrow.
That's awesome.
And yep, after 25 years, there's a couple of brand new ones right there. It's fun to be back on the character again. Personally, I'd be happier if that was the main cover, but I'm not complaining.
I'd be happier if that was the main cover because that's amazing.
But all that said, the false collectible, I guess false collectible, not to be confused with fake news.
Right.
The false collectible is essentially what destroyed the market. In the 90s, they were selling comic books in plastic bags with
like the Death of Superman.
Collector cards. They sold all kinds of different issues of that sort, but there were guys who were publishing their books that it would include trading cards or a toy or something like that. But get this, it was only a collectible if you never opened the bag.
Right.
So you never read the book.
Yeah, and I love to read what I buy.
Right. So you never had any vested interest in the story or the character.
Right.
And what happens is that the first time some kid walked into a store and tried to sell back a book that he had bought for more than he paid for it.
Right.
The dealer reaches under the counter and goes, "Kid, I got all you want for 25 cents each." And that thud that you heard was the industry collapsing.
Yeah.
You went from before the collectibles craze, there were 12 or 1,500 comics and collectible stores in the country. All of a sudden, there were over 10,000, and right back to 1,200.
That's right. It was a crazy time.
Yep.
It was a crazy time. Any chance you coming back in Green Arrow and showing these young guys how to do it?
I don't know if I could show them how to do it, but I'd sure like to give them what for one more time.
That would be great, because you're one of the few that did the writing and the art, and I think the cohesiveness of that just really blends well.
It was a great pleasure to work on that book, and I'm very, very proud of it. 30 years since the Longbow Hunters premiered.
Yeah.
Yep. Just passed the anniversary here a few days ago, and I just found out that I've been inducted into the Overstreet Hall of Fame.
It's about time.
And Wizard World Hall of Legends.
That is awesome.
All in one swell swoop.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is great. That is great.
Well, and I'm still alive. I didn't have to die first.
We got lots of time left. Well, thank you so
Plenty
much.
of time to die, right?
That's right. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I had them all.
We're
Thanks,
a fledgling
guys.
podcast, and you made our con. You really did. You made our con.
All right. You can owe me the 20 bucks.
Okay. Can we get a picture with you?
Absolutely. Aren't you taking pictures?
He is, but we can get one still. That's
sure.